Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 72 of Two Amazon Sellers and a Microphone. Today, Chris and I are joined by a great guest. He is the CEO and founder of Incrementum Digital. He's also a fellow podcast host. His podcast is E-Commerce Mindset. Liran Hirschkorn, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me on. Happy to be here.
We're glad to be chatting with you because you're everywhere right now. I get on Clubhouse and I see you, and get on LinkedIn and I see you. I turn on podcasts. You're everywhere. You're a busy man.
You're consuming too much Amazon content, obviously.
I know that's the problem. I can't stop. It's everywhere. But it's great, man. It's fun. It's fun to be in that community.
Definitely.
And I think that's a good tip just for anybody who's getting into this. I mean, that's a mistake that I made big time early on when I started. Is I did not network in the community, and you don't have there's so much resources out there.
Yeah, it's interesting. You bring up a good point. I had one of our clients today. They're like an exclusive reseller of a product, and so they, when they started, they basically like jumped on these listings. Essentially, they got exclusive, and now they want to start also their own brand. And like, he asked me if he could do a call with me. We manage their ads. He asked me if he could do a call with me to like, how can he learn more about Amazon? What can he do? And I kind of walked him through an hour. I'm like, here are these Facebook groups, and here are these podcasts, and here's this. And then I'm like, and then there's, different paid stuff, but just like start plugging into this, go join, here's some of the biggest, Facebook groups, go listen to these podcasts. Obviously the Solozo one, should be
yeah, that's right.
But like, there's so much free stuff, like plug into it. And then, I would say in a non-COVID world, go to a couple conferences a year, meet people, network. It's the best, there isn't, I think, one path that's like how to learn Amazon. I think it's like, if you start learning some of this stuff and spend, a couple hours a week, just putting into learning, in 6 months, I think you'll go from being, newbie to like, my daughter in Minecraft says there's newbie, pro, master, and then like goddess, right?
Yeah.
So she says, you can really go from a newbie to like a master, in 3 to 6 months if you really like plug in. And to me, that's the best way. There isn't a textbook, it's the best way to learn, and by doing it too,
Yeah, you make a good point. Dustin and I talk to sellers every day, and they come in and they're like, how do I do this? How do I get started? And the first thing I say is that you got to go consume some knowledge, because when Dustin and I started, we were just learning on the fly. There was no Facebook groups. I mean, we're talking 2014 here, and you just had to learn on your own and kind of just throw something out there. And if it stuck, it did great. If not, you had to adjust. So, joining like a mastermind or joining some type of training or just consuming knowledge and just trying, like that's how you're going to learn and get into space and get further along. If you just sit back on the sidelines and just kind of put your feet in every now and then, you're going to get passed up. So you make a good point. You got to get in there.
Yeah, and you got to take. You have to sort of balance out. Like, there's people that will sit and study for a year before they take action too, right? That's also not good.
Yes.
Somebody messaged me after actually from that Clubhouse talk. They messaged me on Instagram yesterday, and they said, "Hey, I'm considering. I don't want to say the name of the program. I think it's a scam, but they said I'm considering buying this like done for you Amazon thing. And it's like there's so much stuff out there, and I'm not sure. I don't want to make a mistake. And I'm like, no, your mistake would be being scammed by this done for you program, because there is no done for you. And by the way, I don't know any 7 or 8 figure sellers that are done for you businesses. None of them are done for you. They all did it themselves. And you got to really just like take action, and if you want to, that's the best way to learn, is by learning and also like modeling other people. One of the things on yesterday's Clubhouse that Ryan said was, success leaves clues, right? So you also want to talk to other smart people that have already done it, so you don't make the same mistakes, but you have to actually do it and make some mistakes along the way in order to learn.
Yeah, and those automation things that you're talking about, those are popping up like crazy, and people are looking for a shortcut, and they're like, I want to get in this Amazon FBA, but I'm not willing to put in the time. I want to pay up front and then just see if I can make millions. It doesn't work that way.
It's the shortest cut to losing your money. If you don't understand the space and you want to try to capitalize of it. I saw Naval. I follow Naval, right? And He's brilliant. He's also on
He's
Clubhouse.
a great follow.
Yeah. And he put something out last week, like something like if you can build it, fund it. If you can't fund it, like support it or something, right? Like there's kind of like levels, right? So if you can't build an Amazon business, okay, well that's where you have these funds coming in and buying businesses that are already successful, and then hiring and building out the pieces to operate them. But to me, if you don't want to build a business, then you go buy one. But to just pay someone $25,000 who says they're going to just like done for you, I mean, they would do it for themselves if they really knew how to do it done for you and didn't want to spam you out of the money.
You're exactly. And if it was amazing, even if it was the best thing ever, by a month later, whatever they had done, it's going to be a whole different ballgame at that point. There's going to be new competitors, new ads, things you can do. I mean, the landscape changes like crazy. And that's why, I mean, I feel like since Chris and I started this podcast, just personally as a seller, from talking to people, being in this community, it's just my knowledge is really expanded, and things I didn't know I could do, I've been able to do. I think that that's a big part of like the e-commerce mindset. Like, like, you've got to be willing to be in there and network, find things to do. So,
and I think you have to, part of the mindset is like realize you don't know everything. You'll never know everything to some extent, and you need to learn from other people. And especially this is like the only thing constant about Amazon is change, right? Like, you need to understand that the landscape is always changing, and that you need to adapt with it, and learn continuously, and that sometimes you're going to try stuff, it's not going to work. It's just part of it.
Dustin and I talk about that all the time. We talked about it on the last podcast, was your ego. Like, a lot of people think, oh, I got this figured out. That's the first mistake. Like, you make that mistake, you're going to be passed up. So a lot of times, and we may not even know it, like you may think you know everything about this space, and you may think you know how to launch a product and product research and keyword research, but your ego is just holding you back. And when you drop that down and get rid of that, you'll start to like learn more and soak more in. And I think a lot of people don't realize that when they don't join a mastermind group, or they shut people out and they stop listening to stuff, it's their own fault.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's, I think, isn't there a book? I haven't read it, but The Ego is the Enemy, right? Like, you talk to a guy like Steve Simonson, who's been in this space, who's been an entrepreneur and been in e-commerce many, many years. And the first thing he'll tell you is, I don't know nothing about nothing, right? When he comes in, right? And I think there's a certain philosophy of, even like when you go to a conference, or when you listen to a podcast like this, you come into that room assuming you know nothing, because you're going to come into the room wanting to receive something and learn from it, as opposed to like, I know everything. I don't need this, and like, that's kind of I think part of the secret to learning is like assuming you don't know anything, and kind of soaking up the information.
100%. Yeah, you're exactly right. Well, let's pivot here and let's dive into the story of Liran. Let's just real quick. We'll just go through a real brief how you got.
Well, it was 19. It all started in 1981, Dustin.
Nice. Yes. That's fun. Well, then you're younger than me, because mine started in 1980. So.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I'm turning 40 in a month.
Welcome to the club.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's a good club. No, so talk about how you got into e-commerce and the Amazon space.
Yeah. So I would say, my background, like where I started my career, actually going not too far from 1981, like when I was a kid, my dad had a good friend who was a day trader. And sometimes on days off from school and stuff, I would go and sit next to him, and he was on his computer. It was like the 90s, so the market was booming, and he would buy, he would buy a stock at $50. He'd buy 1,000 shares, $50,000, and at 51 he would sell it, and he'd make $1,000. And he was watching CNBC. At the time, he would call the broker, to place the trade. There wasn't like internet, trading, and it was like fascinating, right? And I wanted to be a broker. I wanted to be in financial services, stocks. It's really what I wanted to do. And when I was in college, I got an internship with Citicorp Investment Services, and I went on to be a financial advisor. But I was always looking at kind of like, I don't know, I guess had an entrepreneurial spirit and wanted to like have a side hustle. And I was studying internet marketing always, right? I was on for those that remember, like the Warrior Forum, and you know, flipping domains and doing affiliate marketing, just learning. I didn't know at the time that a lot of those sort of failures or learnings were kind of like the seeds of learning internet marketing and learning some of the concepts there. In 2010, I started, I was a financial advisor, and I said, okay, I'm going on my own. And I think there's a better way to find clients, right? At the time, I was going to networking events and chasing people in a sense. And I'm like, I know with the internet, I can get people to come to me. And so I started an insurance agency online and built an insurance business where, I had SEO and written articles and drove traffic and did YouTube. If you search my name on YouTube, you'll find videos from 2013, 2014 of me talking about life insurance. And that's how I drove traffic, especially because in that space, paid traffic was too expensive. At the time, I don't know what it is today. You pay $20 a click for like insurance-based, keywords because you're up against MetLife and big companies. So I had an affinity and sort of started to really get good at internet marketing. And in 2014, I saw a Facebook ad for a course called Dropship Lifestyle, which still exists today, and taught you how to build a Shopify site and essentially not dropship from China, but go to like companies in the US that are probably making their products in China and seeing if they'll drop ship to the customer. And I built a website. It started to do well. That was at the end of 2014. Then I found out about this thing called Amazon FBA. I started to do arbitrage. I started to build that up. Meanwhile, I had commissions coming in from insurance on past sort of stuff that you did, right? So I had cash flow coming in. I outsourced my entire insurance business to a friend of mine in that industry. We split commissions 50-50, and I just focused on Amazon while I still had that income coming in. I could take money and reinvest it. And I started out really with arbitrage. I learned at the time from people like Chris Green on the arbitrage side. And then I learned from Andy Slamans on the private label side, and really started to like learn and, really devour as much content, as I could, building my own private label business on Amazon, which led to, partnering with Andy and having trainings and courses, and led me to, running an agency today.
That's a story. I love that. Yeah. And so it's interesting. We all seems like kind of got into the FBA space right around the exact same time, right around that 2014. And man, is it a totally different world now than it was then. And it was a different world then than it was 2 years before that.
Yeah. I like to think of, like the sellers that got in from like 2012 to 2015, 2016 as like kind of a golden era, a window of opportunity that you can get in. You could start a private label brand. You didn't need to be a super expert. You didn't need to have amazing listings, and stuff would just sell. Mm-hmm. But what I see that's happened because of COVID and 2020 is there's a new window of opportunity that seems to be the case because of sellers, again, that are getting in, that are having a lot of success, that are fairly new, and having success with products that, in 2018, I would tell you don't launch this product, but products that I've seen people launch in 2020 that have had, really good success with, just because there's so much demand, that you could launch products, have great listings, and, and compete. And so I see right now is sort of this new window that's opened up, within the last year, of a lot of people that are coming into the space that are going to, in 3 or 4 years, going to exit these businesses for millions of dollars, kind of like the same wave of people that got in, the same time we did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Back then in like 2013, we didn't think about brands back then. Like we were just, I'm going to sell this product and I'm going to launch it. And then I'm going to sell this product. I'm going to launch that. I'm starting to see, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm starting to see a transition of branding coming back around. Like even Amazon is kind of changing their attitude a little bit and saying like, yes, hey, we want to support these brands. What are you seeing?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, to some extent, Amazon killed the brand, and to some extent, they're embracing it back, right? Because Amazon took this thing where, you went to a Walmart and you saw 5 brands selling a product, and now you don't sort of shop that way. You shop by a keyword, and because of the reviews and the social proof and price, you didn't care anymore about who the brand was behind it, and to some extent, they killed the brand. On another side of it, now they're starting to bring it back by adding more tools towards brands. For example, something that's going to come up, I think soon with Amazon is people, now they can follow your storefront, they can follow your posts. you'll be able to actually send campaigns. There's going to be something called the campaign manager where you'll be able to send those customers coupons and offers and maybe notices about lightning deals and things like that, right? They're going to allow you to do some sort of marketing to those customers, but they're going to allow the customers to have a high level of control, on them opting in instead of, the other way around. So the brand storefront, these big blocks that are showing up on some brands sort of randomly that are showing big pages from storefronts, like all these things, Amazon is showing that they're trying to really embrace brands, and more brands, I've seen kind of studies, more and more brands that have rejected Amazon for the last few years because like, hey, I don't want to put my product on Amazon. Like, if it gets bad reviews, it'll affect my D2C, or I don't want to have to lower my price from the amazing margins I make on my D2C. A lot of these brands are now saying, you know what, I have to be on Amazon because I'm losing so much by not being there. So definitely, I think COVID also accelerated that shift into more bigger brands embracing Amazon. You see Amazon launching even, last year, like Amazon Luxury, right? Again, like collaborations with big players that I think like a Louis Vuitton that 5 years ago just said like, oh, Amazon is way below us, to be on that platform, that you're going to start seeing those on like Amazon Luxury and stuff. So it seems like Amazon won in a sense, like they force these brands to kind of have to be there, unless you're a big like a Nike who can say, you know what, we want a better customer experience, we don't want to be there. But there's very few Nikes out there that can kind of avoid it.
And you're seeing it on the search result pages too. Like when you go to Amazon, you type in something, it's ad, and then there's video ads. And then when you go to a brand's page, they're even doing more on the page with like brand story, and you can tell your brand identity, and you're getting enhanced brand content. I had something in my account that said it was a survey Amazon does. That those little survey, the questionnaires. Mm-hmm. Amazon allows me to communicate with my customers. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a definite no.
Where's the FU on the survey? Amazon supports me as a seller. Like who comes up with these questions? Most of the time, I feel like it's somebody that has Amazon having a good time. I'm sure the feedback on a lot of that stuff is poor, but I imagine that over the last few years, maybe some of that stuff has improved, and they've made some improvements there, right? They used to suspend you right away. Now they give you a little bit of a notice. Like, I feel like they are trying to make some improvements there, but to some, I posted on Facebook, to some, Amazon is still like, to some extent, you should also be building out your own audience, your own D2C site and all that, and not rely, on Amazon. I posted on my Facebook wall a video this company called the Everyday Sling made. Amazon Basics just basically knocked off their product, and they made a video, and they basically said like, you can buy the Everyday Sling, or here's an alternative, the Amazon Basics. If you want a product that isn't made sustainably, that doesn't have the B Corporation, that didn't invest, hours of time and into researching and design and development of a product, like, and they're kind of showing the Amazon Basics team like taking a product image, putting a stencil over it, and like drawing it out and being like, put it into production, So like Amazon, to some extent, people do see it as like the enemy to some extent, which you should be building out your own audience. And I think the same thing about success on Amazon in 2020, I've seen more people have success on Shopify than ever before, also, and have success, with Facebook ads to Shopify. So, if you have $1 million Amazon business, at that point, I think you should start thinking about, okay, I should start taking some of these profits and investing it into building out my own thing.
For sure. And I think the diversification is the key. I mean, in anything, you don't want all of your eggs in one basket, because anything can happen, obviously. But to the same point, avoiding Amazon is equally as horrible of a strategy.
Definitely.
I mean, and it's growing. And you mentioned the opportunity and what's happening. I mean, the amount of shoppers on Amazon, worldwide since this pandemic started has just gone up. I don't know what the number is, but it's gone up an enormous amount. So, I mean, that pie is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think that's why you see a lot of things that were competitive. Now, I mean, there was so many more shoppers now. I mean, it's
right.
You can now get into those spaces. So I think it's interesting, and it's going to be really interesting to see where Amazon goes from here. I mean, It's
Well,
gonna.
yeah, Amazon just bought a company, I think called Cells, based out of Australia. That's a D2C kind of like platform with app integration. Almost like a much smaller version of what Shopify is. So, it'll be interesting to see what they do with that, right? Like, imagine will you want to have your D2C on Amazon's platform? Different story, I don't know, but imagine all the reviews just importing by themselves onto your Shopify, or Cells, right? Like D2C store, direct fulfillment from FBA with 2-day delivery. Some of these like Amazon features that will be brought into this. So, I think Amazon is realizing they need to get into that space, and that will be interesting. As well, I definitely think more opportunities around building a brand storefront, as well as just more influencer opportunities. Amazon Live seems to be getting a little bit more traction. Influencer pages are getting more traction. Whether or not Amazon will ever be successful with their own sort of social platform, I think is yet to be seen. They had a program called Spark a couple years back. For those that remember, you can go into the Amazon app and click and see kind of like what the Amazon posts are now. And it was called Spark, and that kind of failed. So I think they would like to be sort of not just a search-based platform, but a discovery-based platform. And according to studies, millennials like to kind of shop by discovery, not just by keyword searches. So it'll be interesting to see, will Amazon Live just show up in the search results, right? Like how much of this stuff is added in. Right now, Amazon Live shows up on product pages during the live, right? Will it show up there after the live? Like how much more do they integrate influencer marketing and sort of like a social shopping experience will be interesting.
And that's why, as a owner of a e-commerce platform as like us, you've got to stay on top of this. I mean,
yes.
This is why there's no set it and forget it. I mean, like you mentioned, Amazon Live, that's something that I'm not putting enough energy into yet. I need to, because it's going to be, you're right, it's going to be sort of the next thing, and to see how they integrate it with influencers. I mean, it's going to be really, really fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, staying on top of stuff. If for those that are watching, it'd be interesting if people even want to comment, like who jumped on Amazon video ads when it first came out, right? Sponsor brand video ads. If you jumped on it when it came out, you remember the days. Now it's not even allowed anymore, but you can get 10-cent clicks, right? Now Amazon raised the minimum click to 25 cents. You're not even allowed to get it, but we were getting 10-cent clicks on video ads. If you jumped on it early, you were getting inventory for the same keywords that people were paying $4 for to be at the top of the page, to have this huge prominent spot and paid less than $1, right? Amazing opportunity. But if you hear about it a year later, you missed out on that opportunity to jump on something new. And I think that's your advantage in staying tuned into podcasts like this and like the community is that Procter & Gamble doesn't jump on those things. Procter & Gamble takes 6 months in their legal department before they can approve the video, right? Go in, and as a small seller, you can jump on those opportunities, and that's your advantage against, those huge companies. It's also your advantage against, if your competition is like a Thrasio, you're competing against an employee at Thrasio, essentially, right? They have systems and a team, but you're the entrepreneur that's, not sleeping and I may be thinking about when you're going to have video ads on, while maybe you're competing against somebody else who goes home at 5 p.m., and is working a little bit differently. So I still think the entrepreneur has a lot of advantages, and staying clued in and being able to move fast is really important on Amazon.
No doubt. I remember when Vendor Express was the little loophole to get to that headline ad.
Yes.
And that, like, when I found that out, I may have found it out on the AMPM podcast, honestly, probably. But when I found that out, I implemented that right away. I put all my products in a headline ad, and that thing just milked money for me. Like, I was just getting cash after cash. And then I found out about these video ads. That was another thing. I'm like, I got to do this. And it was just a bad video, but it converted like crazy because it was something new. So that's where, like, being a part of like Brand Registry, that's going to give you access to this kind of stuff. When they roll out new ad, and when I say they, I mean Amazon, when they roll out stuff for brands, we're going to be the first to get it before everybody else gets it.
Right. Absolutely.
let's take a look at this from the perspective of if you were starting today as an Amazon seller, okay? Because there's a lot of people that listen to us that are probably looking to get into the Amazon world.
Yep.
And you'd mentioned this earlier, and this is something that I did too. I believe Chris did as well. Is when my first deal was arbitrage. I just went to Walmart. I went to Big Lots. I would try to find some things that I could sell on Amazon to make a little bit of profit. Didn't even care really. I just wanted to figure out how it worked.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be? I feel like that's a great way to start. So you can learn, just learning what like FBA, how that all functions, like shipping stuff in, labels, all that.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a good way to learn. Also, the private label process, it'll take you 3 months before you have, at least probably before you have a product live, right? Mm-hmm. Don't sit around during that process. Yeah, one, try to make some money off Amazon, off the opportunity, and two, I feel like I had such an advantage over new private label sellers that were coming in when I started private label. Now, on the one hand, I wish I would have started. In one sense, I wish I would have started straight with private label. Right, I missed a year, sort of, until I launched my product because I didn't even know about private label, and I was just doing this arbitrage thing. On the other hand, I had so much existing knowledge. I understood Keepa, and I understood bestseller rank, and I understood the buy box, and people maybe that jump on. I understood like looking at the data on Amazon because all I was relying on is like VSR and like what can that drive in terms of sales, and that gave me an understanding that when I went to private label, I could really assess the competition and see like is this a product that would want to launch. So I think it is a great way to get your feet wet with Amazon, and look, to be there's still people making a lot of money on arbitrage and online arbitrage. We have a company we manage ads for, and they have private label, they have wholesale, and they have teams like across the country of shoppers that go out. They're able to scale basically arbitrage, and that alone is a 7-figure plus, I think maybe close to $10 million business of just arbitrage. But they have teams that go out, they have a plan, they have systems, right? So it's not just one person, but they've taken this arbitrage, which is very times tough to scale beyond $1 million because you have to go to stores and buy the products and get the inventory to be something that's scalable. So there's definitely ways to make money there, and you can learn Amazon. So I still think it's a great way to learn. If I was starting out today, I would go out, I would take $25,000, and I would go out and launch 3 or 4 products. I would learn a lot. And then I would double down on the 1 or 2 that really I saw traction with, because that's likely what's going to happen. You'll launch 4 products, 1 or 2 of them will have some nice traction, hopefully. Maybe the others are slower, and then I would just double down on those 2 products. I would see what's the maximum amount that people are selling at 200 reviews? What's the maximum amount they're selling at 500 reviews? And I would say, how much can I push and push and push until I can get this product to 500 reviews, until I can get this product to 1,000 reviews? And again, I think when you launch a product, if you launch the right product, and I would spend a lot of time on the product research part. I would spend a lot of time on reading positive and negative reviews on my competition. I would make a detailed list of all the things I would want in a product, how it would change something, how it would improve it. I would talk to suppliers. I would get samples. I would spend a lot of my effort there because it's a lot of the product selection that will make your success. On this Clubhouse talk yesterday, we spoke about how I helped these guys launch a product, and it went from 0 to 2 million in sales in 3 months, right? And now you could say that a lot of it is due to the marketing side, running the ad side, the listing, the optimization. But if they chose a bad product, there's no way it would have done that, right? And choosing, to me, even if I was out of that picture, they still would have had success with it, right? Maybe not the same level, maybe yes, maybe not. You can make the argument. They still would have had success because they started off with the right product. They differentiated something. They read all the negative reviews. I would spend a lot of time on the product selection component, also understanding that as good as you can be at product selection, it's not a perfect process. And that's why I would launch a few different products. And then again, I would look at these products that did well, and I would say, okay, can I add variations here? Can I double down on these products? How do I drive more sales? How do I spend some money on rebates? And knowing that if I give away 1,000 units, I'm can probably get 100 reviews out of that just from people leaving reviews, and trying to push and push and push, be aggressive, and double down. add variations, and then go to my next set of 3 or 4 products. And I think you could build up $1 million business in a year or less if you really follow that model. But I would sort of over-index the time I spent on the product selection part, because to me, if you launch a product and the first 2-3 months it's a struggle to get 5 to 10 sales a day, you got to dump that product, and you can launch a new product and like you're suddenly selling 10 units a day without a tremendous effort. That's where I would focus. And
to take a step further, something that's really hot now is getting out of this and selling for multiples. That's a huge topic. I mean, we're seeing people raise a bunch of millions of capital. You could just do what Liran just said, and then you could literally flip it and just sell it and take out a big payout just after you've done that. So what are you seeing in that space? Are people just launching and reflipping and just cycling it back and forth?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people that I know. I have a friend who sold his business for 7 figures last year. He had another brand in mind that he wanted to do, and almost immediately got started working on that new brand. And the reality is that, if you sell for $1 million, it's likely, and you're young, it's likely not enough after you pay, I don't know, 30% of that, 40% of that, whatever it is to the government. And you want to put some money away for the future. It's not enough to just go sit, right? But you can go and double down on everything you learned along the first trip around and the exit to do it a lot better. And some of these companies that are acquiring brands are having now people come to them with their second brand. They sold one to them and they're coming back with their second one. So yeah, to me, it would make sense to just go, do it again, unless you sold for enough money where, you don't necessarily want to or have to do that, or you can now go be an investor, and fund other sellers, help them grow, and kind of do something a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, the valuations are getting better and better. I think relatively speaking, in the world of valuations, they're still low. And that's why there's so much money coming in, because like 2 to 3x, which now they're kind of moving beyond that. But think about, buying a business for 2x. And if you can, with enough predictability, say like there's kind of low risk that it's not going to continue to sell. At least like in 2 years, you recover everything that you put into that business. Everything else from there is upside. And if you grow it, and since e-commerce is growing and Amazon is growing, it's naturally going to grow. It's kind of like a steal, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why you have, billions of dollars pouring into the space, because I think the sellers that started in 2012 to 2015 kind of proved that this model works. And I think big money always waits until little money proves something, and then they come in and they want to do it at scale. And that's kind of what's happening, right? The small, scrappy entrepreneur has proven that this private label model and selling on Amazon works. And now, and at the same time, I think it's a perfect storm where, interest rates are very low. So like you can't really keep money in the bank or in bonds or whatever, right? And it's not giving you a return. The investors need to put money somewhere. And where's what's seeing the most growth right now in a COVID world is like anything digital, and e-commerce is a great place to be. So I think definitely COVID has accelerated the amount of money that come in. A lot of this sort of capital raising started when Thrasio last year. I saw it because I had a lot of people reaching out to me to have conversations who wanted to start these kind of businesses and who started them. There was an article in March or April last year. Thrasio gets 1 billion valuation, raises money, right? And I think that just lit a fire under a lot of investors, people who had kind of been thinking about something like this and said like, okay, it's time to hit go. And together with COVID, it just like was the perfect storm, of funds. That being the case, I think it's a great opportunity for sellers who have a lot of their net worth in their business to take some chips off the table and try to do it again. I don't think there's anything bad in going and selling, for a 3 or 4x multiple, because you probably just go do it again. And, you're essentially also de-risking, like, again, if you have a business that's worth $2-3 million and, 80-90% of your net worth is there, you have a lot of risk in your Amazon business too. So I totally understand and make sense on, why a seller would want to sell and and cash out.
And it's really interesting right now because I can assure you that when I started in 2014, an exit plan was nowhere in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was creating a side hustle. I thought I was going to be, I was looking to make extra income, and then it starts working. And so I think people now, like if some like us, we would go in with the exit in mind,
Definitely.
and build everything that, like, make sure you got all your ducks in a row, make sure all of your legal work's done, and you've got accountants working for everything's clean, and it's you're positioning it so it's a sellable asset.
Definitely. So I mean, definitely, I think you should take this seriously. You should start out with an LLC or the whatever structure you should be. You should start out with good bookkeeping and QuickBooks, and I mean, we have a bookkeeper who's in the Philippines who does amazing, right? It doesn't need to be expensive, but we have we make sure we have our books right so that when people want to look at it, besides ourselves and understanding your numbers, you should also have a good understanding of your numbers too and take it seriously. Starting out the right way makes sense. And I think sort of as a separate mindset of also how you look at your business, how you make decisions. I think sometimes putting off your seller hat and putting on your investor hat. What would asking yourself in a particular situation, I think a lot of sellers face these issues of, should I go to Shopify now, or should I launch more products on Amazon, or should I go international, or what should I do? Sometimes putting on what if I was an investor in this company? What would I advise them to do? Will get you to think about it, a little bit differently, because honestly, and I heard, Casey, we did a talk with Raju on Monday on Clubhouse, and one of the things Casey said, well, if you built 5 products that got you to $1 million business, the next best thing to do would go to 10 products and go to a $2 million business, right? It's not necessarily going to Europe now, or going to Shopify now. Maybe the next best thing is just repeating what you've already done, and maybe that's what an investor would tell you. But I think sellers sometimes have shiny object syndrome and entrepreneurial ADD. You just want to grab all the opportunity you can at once, and it's not always possible.
That's absolutely right. Man, it's so fun talking about this. I mean, we talk about it every day, but I just get excited about e-commerce and the Amazon space. It's fun. It's a great business model for a life. I mean, it's really fascinating. But I know that we've taken up a lot of your time, and we love having you on. This has been absolutely amazing. Real quick, if anybody wants to get in touch with you or work with you with Incrementum Digital, how can they get in touch with you? And
sure. So we have a form on our website, incrementumdigital.com. We're actually redoing the site, so hopefully it will look better in around a month or so. Or you can send me a DM, on Facebook, or my email is liran@incrementumdigital. You can reach out. I post a lot of content related to Amazon, so you can follow my Facebook wall or the e-commerce mindset group, or podcast, kind of stay plugged in with some of the things that are changing. If you're on Clubhouse, there's a club called Amazon Sellers Club you can join too. And then you'll get pinged when we do these kind of like rooms with some other people that are out there. I try to record them if possible and then put them up on the podcast. So, if there's 20 people in a room, I can repurpose it and get it out to hundreds of people that can listen to it. So, yeah. If
you guys that are listening are not in Clubhouse right now, you need to be. I mean, and if you need an invite, I've got a couple invites, so message me.
It's ridiculous. It's so good.
It's such a fun platform, and everyone's in there. It's just great casual conversations, people giving out great advice. What you're doing is fantastic. It's just a great community, for sure. So everyone, you've got to go in there. And
it's amazing. I mean, like people like Naval, or like people you can't get on, there's an interview with Bill Gates last week, right? Like there's, if you're into crypto, you'll have the founders of, Coinbase, and if you're into probably what a lot of us are into, like tech, entrepreneurship, mindset, leveling up in your life. Like there's just a lot of quality content and people that, that you couldn't, when I first joined the first week, I think I had like a guy from a VC and like the rapper Soldier Boy in a room together talking, right? Like where can you get that? Where can you get that? You know,
Yeah, it's great.
and have those conversations, and then you learn that Soldier Boy is not just a rapper, but he's an investor in like all these companies and behind the scenes and stuff. Like it's pretty cool. So I really love the platform, and you know I don't have to do hair and makeup, you know. Before you get on there, so it's nice also. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys, you know, having me on the podcast and what you guys are doing, you know, pumping out episodes here as well.
Well, we appreciate it, and thanks so much. We'll have to get you back on sometime in the future. We can dive into a bunch of specific topics that'll be good value for everybody. But amazing. Thanks for the time. Everyone listening, if you like this content, if you want to hear people like Liran come on and talk with us, please subscribe to our podcast. You can find us on every platform that podcasts exist. You can follow us there, leave us a review. You can also see our live streams on Facebook, on the Solozo page on Facebook, the Solozo channel on YouTube. Subscribe to those as well. Click the notification so you get the notifications when we go live, so you can see content like this at all times. We will be back at this again Monday. And Liran, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a blast.
Thanks. Super fun. Thanks for having me on.